With the 166th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Seahawks select wide receiver Tory Horton out of Colorado State. They did go wide receiver.
There it is.
They did it.
Ball knower over there. Also, he had been one of those guys that when we started the fifth round, one of the best available. And, yeah, you're getting down to the wire with these good receivers. But, yeah, Colorado State, a pick there that's going to be very big for the Seahawks team to replenish that youth on the wide receiving core.
So the Athletic had Tory Horton rated as a 3rd to 4th round grade. So potential steal here in round 5. He was their 13th wide receiver ranked overall between Kyle Williams of Washington State and Savion Williams of TCU. So Horton, a guy not taken where I think a lot of people maybe had expected him to. A little bit of a slide here, but
he did miss the second half of 2024 with a knee injury.
Yeah, and had a growing injury too in that 2024 season.
What is he, Dave Wyman? But a lot of injuries. No.
Look, you found a wide receiver.
Yep.
That's somebody that's a position that we've been talking about a lot here over the last couple of hours. But I like the position. I think it addresses a really big need on this team. What do we make of a wide receiver here going round 5?
I'm interested to see how he's used because we know they're going to use tight ends a little bit more moving forward. And it sounds like with everything that they mentioned yesterday, McDonald and Schneider, after day 2 concluded, they really like Elijah Arroyo. So you have Arroyo as a pass-catching option. You have A.J. Barner. We've started to speculate what this means for Noah Fant as a receiving option. And you do have a guy that at least is a receiver under control for a number of years because, sure, you brought in some receivers, but it's MVS on a 1-year deal. It's Cooper Kupp on a deal that you can, kind of get out of a little bit as well. So here is your youth. Here's your guy that you can bring in as that secondary complement to JSN. And now maybe this is the start of that receiving core, JSN, Tory Horton, and then those key pieces around them in MVS and Cooper Kupp. But the more pressure you can take off of like a Cooper Kupp to be the main pass receiving threat outside of JSN, the better for the Seahawks offense. And Sam Darnold, who we know last year with the Vikings, really thrived with an abundance of weapons.
Yeah, and I like that at 6'2.5", you're getting a little bit of height there. Not the biggest guy, but he's not small either. And I'm looking at Lance Airline's write-up on him. He says, instinctive route runner with a feel for burst and timing and rarely drops what's thrown his way. Like to hear that he has nice hands and also that he was a 2-time captain. I think there's been a lot of turnover, obviously, in this receiver room this offseason. And you get some veteran help there with Cooper Kupp, but it's nice to bring in a guy that seems like he's got some leadership qualities.
One aspect of his game that the Seahawks haven't had a lot of dudes in is punt return. 3 punt return touchdowns during his time at Colorado State, 79, 78, and 72 yards, average 16.3 yards per return. That is an area of the game that the Seahawks have not had really a difference maker in a long time. I remember Godwin Igwebuike had that like half season while he was here where he was
I was so mad where they didn't keep him either.
Oh, I know.
Because he was one of my one of my XFL Seattle Dragons
right.
guys. I loved him. He was a good dude. And he had some explosive plays for the Steelers after that too. I don't know why, because he would have been cheap. I'm not sure why they didn't value that.
Well, I think he ended up retiring recently. But look, if you can find somebody that can make a difference in the kick return game, that's going to be an area that I think we kind of overlook a little bit. I know Michael Bumpus has always been pounding the table for the Seahawks to get a good kick returner because that was a role that Bump played during his time in the NFL. But I think that is something that I think we should be really interested in.
Especially with the rule changes this year where they think they've made it so that you're going to be able to return those a little bit more than what we've been seeing.
It is dynamic. According to the NFL, it's going to be a dynamic kickoff. It has been for a few years. But yeah, you're right. I mean, just a quick glance of the Seahawks roster, they don't really have a kick returner or a punt returner. No Laviska Shenault anymore. We saw DJ Dallas have what? Didn't he have a kick return touchdown last year for wherever he is
for the
now?
Cardinals,
for the Cardinals. Thank you. Yeah. So they've had guys, Travis Homer, right? He had that role for a little bit. They've had guys that have now gone elsewhere, but this could be key. Good eye there, guys. I think, this is an important pick there for Tory Horton because you don't have a kick returning or pass or punt returning or kick returning option. No more Tyler Lockett who would go back there at times, and you don't really want JSN back there, I don't think. So, this could be an interesting pick there, and his role will certainly evolve in multifaceted ways for the Seahawks.
Horton grew up a multi-sport athlete, and he played just about every sport available to him. Baseball was reportedly his first love. Basketball, his dad's favorite sport. Football and soccer. So they love those multi-sport athletes, and I think that is something that it should be emphasized too with all these draft picks. Like, you are going to get a much more well-rounded athletic experience as a high school or as a youth if you're in multiple disciplines, not just strictly football, not just strictly whatever sport it is. So I really like that the Seahawks continue. That was one of the Pete Carroll philosophies. He really loved guys that played multiple sports, and so good to see Tory Horton. I know Gray Zabel was a very accomplished pitcher. I think he touched like
through low 90s.
Low 90s playing in North Dakota. So good to see that.
Well, it's something I think that's harder and harder to find nowadays, because so many of these guys are told that they need to specialize and join these like 7-on-7 groups that take up so much of your time. I think it's more difficult to be a multi-sport athlete nowadays.
It does feel like this was kind of the combination of best available versus need kind of coalescing again. And it's not an either or. I think people get that confused. You know, we've heard from John Schneider, there is a range where this grouping of players is among their best available. It's not like it comes down to 18 or 166 here, and it's like, okay, it's this guy or a guy 3 or 4 spots lower, and we're taking the guy that's literally above him. It's all right, we're going to feel comfortable taking any of these players within this grouping of 6 to 7. And so here, where, they could have used some other positions, but also a receiver, based on what we're watching on NFL Network, what we've read on any of these projection websites, that Tory Horton, probably one of the best remaining players out there right now, worked out well for the Seahawks, and it feels like they've kind of picked the best available at each position that they also need as they get further and further. Where safety wasn't the most pressing need, you could still improve on it. They clearly got the best available, trading up for Eamon Worry. Guard and Gray Zabel being good kind of came together right there, and then tight end, maybe not the biggest need, but a need, and then certainly a good talent there in Arroyo. So it's all kind of coming together with a pretty good draft so far. Now I'm curious about where they go, because there are the holes. There are feel a little uneasy about the lack of depth on the O-line. Could use another cornerback as well, but this is why they have the picks. And what do they have still? They have 175, 192, and then 3 in the 7th round. So going to be a lot of players still continuing to be Seahawks as we wind our coverage all the way to the end, guys. We're going all the way to the end. Well, not us. Sean Wally's coming in to take you towards the end here at 2 o'clock. But, it's going to be a very intriguing draft. And when the Seahawks have had big classes recently, like 2023 or 2022, they really overall have had pretty solid drafts. So it seems like this one's shaping up to be like that.
I think you had a really good point there about how this feels like a solid marriage between needs and best available. And I think the volume probably does have something to do with that. You maybe feel a little bit forced to nail it and get it right, and like we have to take the best available and don't mess this up when you have fewer picks. But I think this draft feels like they are addressing needs, but they're not going best available to the point where it's like, why did you do that? That isn't something that fits here. So they're getting good players, but also addressing their needs.
Yeah, they have 11 total picks now in the draft, which is an abundance compared to some years. I know last year they didn't even have a 2nd-round pick because they used that in the Leonard Williams trade.
Remember the Stone Forsythe DS
2021?
3 players? Who was
Trey Brown.
Yeah. That was
the best, quote, best of that, which he was. He was really good, and he was such a good interview, so we all loved him, but then it just kind of fizzled out for Trey Brown. Right. So that's a tough draft.
Kind of got the yips.
Yeah, you can see why I think GMs like having a lot of picks, because you can maneuver, you can leverage all these, you can figure out the best talent versus need when you have these options. When you have 3, you kind of have to get guys.